This week, we welcome Page Steinhardt, jewelry maker, bladesmith, and Forge and Fire champion.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much, Paige, for being here. I already thanked you in the pre-chat, but officially, thanks for being on. Appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Before we get to talk to Paige, because we've got a lot to talk about, I just want to say hello to Aurora and Mark. It's been a long time since we've been able to get together and do this. But hey, guys, how you doing? Aurora, what's up? Where are you? You're in a new space.
Yeah, so I am at conference. I'm a manager at Henry's, for those who don't know, and we're having our annual managers conference right now, and I just had dinner, and then we were about to go play games, like board games and stuff, but I decided I was going to run up here first and then go do the games after, so yeah.
I did make it to one or two managers meetings, and I know that there's a lot of activities that go on when it's all said and done, so thanks for taking the hour and being here. I'm sure you'll get to go and do all that later and have your nice early wake up tomorrow and have a great time being like super tired all day tomorrow.
7 a.m. start.
Yay. All right, well, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Mark, I know you and I have talked a lot about getting a bladesmith and talking to somebody who knows how to move metal on our show.
We have. I'm very excited. I wasn't going to give up this one. This is a show I really wanted to be on.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get to it. Let's start talking to Paige and finding out that whole creativity thing. Again, the whole point of our show is to talk to folks who have been able to be creative and turn that passion and that creativity into something that they can do every day. Nothing to me is more important than doing what you love and loving what you do. And would you say that applies to you, Paige? Do you love what you do and do what you love?
Most of the time.
Well, I know I've done a little bit of...
Sometimes I hate it.
I can imagine. We've watched Forge and Fire, and we should mention that you won Forge and Fire, season 4, episode 6, I believe.
Correct.
And I mean, that must have been an amazing experience. I want to talk to you more about the experience of the show, but we want to find out more about yourself and find out more about where the creativity comes from, how it started, and how you're able to transition from, having a 9-to-5, say, maybe if you had a 9-to-5 where you had to, wake up and do something that you didn't love, into that thing that you can do, that you do love. And I know for a fact that, forging is something that is a passion for you, because I've seen the work you do. I've seen you on 2 different shows, not just Forge and Fire, but Knife and Death as well, I believe.
Knife or Death.
Knife or Death, that's right. And wasn't Bill Goldberg the host of that?
He was.
Was he there for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, him and Two Lamb. And Travis Wirtz was the guy who tested the blades to make sure that they were actually safe to use before going out on the course.
Well, of course, Bill Goldberg's the first guy I go to from the wrestling world, because that's what I do. I do the pro wrestling photography.
Okay. I also was a commercial photographer for a while.
I know, and I saw that too. So, okay, let's get to that. Let's talk about that. Is that what you did your first kind of a career, or what was your first official career? Because I know when I sent you the email with the questions, you sent back, what career?
Yeah.
So what would you call that?
Well, I got into photography. I watched Star Wars when I was 11. And got hooked on special effects and all that stuff. I wanted to be a cinematographer. I wanted to be the next John Dykstra, the guy who actually did the special effects for Lucas. I wanted to create magic on film. And I couldn't afford to get into cinema, because at the time, movies were actually done with a camera that rolled like, silver halide coated cellulose embedded in gelatin at obscene cost. So I figured out how to do it. I started getting into still photography and just trying to do the kind of composite stuff that he was doing, and the still camera thing. And I sold my soul to the yearbook for a year selling ads to get access to a camera. And then after a year of selling advertisements for the yearbook, I was allowed to use a camera. 6 months later, I had 2 State Fair blue ribbons and decided, hey, I'm probably pretty good at this thing. I should do it for a living. I was 14 at the time.
Nice.
And so that's kind of how I got started in photography. It's the thing I went to college for. I went to RIT. And
I've noticed with a lot of the photographers that we talk to, there's always another creative interest. There's always a music side.
You just kind of blanked out.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that I've noticed with a lot of the other people that we've talked to, photographers in general, that there's always another side to their creativity. There's the music side sometimes, like some of them are musicians and photographers, or other things as well. So there it is.
Oh, little Gibson SG going on there.
So let's talk about that, because one of the photos you sent us, you're playing a flute.
Yes, flute. Well, you just froze again.
Brian, you're freezing all over the place. Is it just Brian freezing, or is it all of us?
I have no connection issue with any of you guys right now.
Aurora did blanked once. Brian has frozen multiple times. Mark, you've been fine so far.
Oh, well, there you go. Which is odd because my wife is streaming something in the other room. So
we're not really streaming much here. So hopefully it's not going to continue.
Yeah, nobody's glitched for me since I restarted my system earlier. So
it might be your side, Paige. Might be.
Yeah.
But we'll get through it.
Yeah, we'll get through it. I play electric flute. I got into listening to Jethro Tull.
Electric flute? Like rock and roll flute, like Jethro Tull? Okay.
Yeah.
What's electric flute? I'm very curious.
Have you heard Jethro Tull, Aurora?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so we'll do a
little. We'll have to do an introduction, and we'll get Aurora into some Aqualung.
Yes.
So this is a little known fact about me. Throughout high school, I played the flute.
But you don't know about electric flute. Well, now you will.
I did not. Whoa.
This one has a Barkus Berry pickup stuck in the head cork, and that goes to typically when I'm playing out, that goes to a preamp on my belt, which goes into a wireless, which goes into an effects rack, which then goes into a wah pedal, and that goes into the PA.
Cool.
Okay.
Way to set up.
That's
so
pretty
you can completely control it and get the wah going and everything. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, actually, flute with wah works really well. Flute with a fuzz pedal, not so much. Okay. You really need a corded instrument to make fuzz work, but it sounds great with a wah, a little bit of echo, and I roll the highs right off because otherwise it can just cut right through you.
Wow. Yeah, I guess so.
I also do that with my fiddle.
Oh, and the fiddle.
Yep.
Of course, yeah.
So you kind of remind me of my mother a little bit because she plays everything. No, in a good way. My mother plays everything. She plays the banjo and the piano and the mandolin, and she played the flute, and she played the violin. Like, it's ridiculous when people can cross over so many different things. I didn't get that. I hit things with a stick. That's about the best I could do. But no, my mom and you apparently have this ability to play everything. Did you take lessons in everything?
I started piano lessons when I was 5. I think that was close enough to when people normally learn languages that I learned music as a language. The language centers engaged with sorry, I just had Calypso walk underneath me. Calypso is my tortoiseshell cat, by the way.
Torty.
Come on, Calypso.
We had a tortie for 22, 23 years.
See if I can coax her. Come on.
Nope, meow.
Oh, nope.
I heard it.
Yeah, she talks a lot. Yeah. So, I started learning piano when I was 5. And so I think I developed it in my language centers. So it just became part of what I am, the music.
It's
and
how you think. It's just how you think, yeah.
Yeah, which was great for just, kind of intuitively any musical instrument that has a linear way to get to the notes is kind of intuitive to me. But anything like brass where I'm trying to do this and make 12 notes and plus octaves, I just don't get it. My brain doesn't work with it. And it made it actually harder to learn some of the more advanced stuff because the relatively simple part of the music, the structure, the playing, the knowing what to play came so easily that it got kind of hard to do the tricky academic stuff because I didn't have to study to do the easy stuff. Yeah, my wife jokes about how I just walk on stage with somebody and they start playing and I just know what they're playing.
That's pretty cool.
That's a talent I wish I had. I can barely play guitar, and I play it because I like it, not because I'm good at it. But definitely. So do you actually play with a regular group of people in a band or shows, or is it just something you do as a hobby?
I'm sort of the optional third member to a modern folk duo right now.
Okay.
If they're doing a gig that is within reasonable driving distance and I'm not otherwise committed, I'll run down and just kind of step in. I
Do it
used to be
'cause you
part of
love
that. Yeah. I used to be part of the house band for a bunch of open mic sessions in Rochester, New York before I moved to Syracuse.
Okay.
It's been a little hard connecting with the music scene in Syracuse. It's kind of closed.
Okay.
But yeah, I've done electric folk. I've done Celtic. I've done heavy metal. I was frontman for a heavy metal group in the early '90s down in Ithaca. The song I wrote on local airplay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Boredom is dangerous.
Oh, geez, that's interesting because this whole past couple of years, I mean, have you had that boredom come back? Have you been doing things that you didn't normally do creatively?
It's kind of hard to say. Going on Forged in Fire really pushed the boundaries of what I thought I was capable of doing. It kind of pushed me beyond where I was ready to go. It made me go there anyway. And I realized that I was able to do it. So between pushing the boundaries of what I'm capable of and opening up my options and giving me a whole new audience, I've been crazy busy.
Nice.
So is it all like metal work that you're busy with, all the forging and knives and swords and things?
It's knives and swords. It's making jewelry. It's making crowns. In the medieval society that I'm also a member of, they call them cornets.
Okay.
Unless it's actually on somebody who is the king or queen of a kingdom, then it's a cornet. I actually have one of them. See if the headphone will reach all the way back there without knocking the computer off the desk. Challenges of live podcasts. And oh yeah. I'll see some
very cool.
cards too. I didn't know where this interview was going to go, so I just brought a whole bunch of props with me.
Well, we tend to go all over the place, so it's good that you did that.
Yeah, we squirrel quite a bit.
Yeah, we do.
So I hear a cat. I don't see the cat. That makes me worried. Good thing I made the studio safe. It's literally, I have no idea where she is. So this is all sterling silver.
Okay.
So I made the band, made the patterns that I made the castings from. I hear a lot of rustling. I have no idea where the cat is. So yeah, this is actually a considerable amount of sterling silver. Wave it up where the camera can see it.
Wow.
First rule of television,
Yeah.
let the camera see what you're doing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And
That is really cool.
Awesome.
So each one of these symbols on here means a different thing to the person who is wearing it. That is their personal device, their heraldry. It is a visual representation of their name theoretically. That is a pelican, which stands for service to the organization. That is a rose, which has its own meaning. The fact that this thing has square-topped bits has meaning, means that the person who is wearing it is a count or countess, meaning that they have been a king or queen once and have stepped down, so now they get to wear the thing. But anyway, I do a lot of these for people in the Society for Creative Anachronism, and I use a wide range of materials from blackened steel, bronze, gold-plated, sterling silver.
When you got onto Forge and Fire, were you making a lot of knives at the time, or were you really focusing on your jewelry and this kind of thing?
I was mostly doing the jewelry and the cornets. I was doing some fencing swords. I wasn't doing a lot of knives because for me, knives are more of a passion than a real business thing. I'd sell some, but most of what was paying the bills was day job and making the jewelry and the cornets. Calypso, where are you?
That's the thing with cats. They do what they want.
Yeah.
And then the dogs just have to live with it.
Pretty much, yeah.
But old Henlon quote, I think.
So Paige, I'm curious. You talked a little bit about how you got into photography, but how did you get into forging? What
I wanted a knife. I was 14, and my grandfather had this thing called a Popular Mechanics Do-It-Yourself Encyclopedia, which had directions for how you make a knife from a file. So after my parents went to bed, I would sneak from my bedroom, which was in the basement, into the wood shop, which was next to my bedroom in the basement, and very quietly heat up a Nicholson file with a torch to soften it. And then I very slowly and very carefully filed it and filed it and filed it and filed it. And I made this.
That's the exact one?
This is the first knife I ever made. I made this when I was 14.
Wow.
That is awesome.
I mean, for the first thing you ever made, that's amazing.
Not only that, but it's still around.
Yeah,
you held on to it.
I wasn't going to sell it.
Well, no, but I mean, everything.
I wore this thing for years.
So did your
14 years old and did stuff? I mean, nothing I have from 14 is still around. So,
yeah. So with that knife, did your parents ever figure out what you were up to, or did you manage to pull it off?
I kind of pulled it off. I'm not sure at what point it became public, but
I've always wanted to. I shouldn't say I've always wanted to. I started watching Forge and Fire in season 1, and I was just absolutely enthralled. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know you could do that. People actually make knives. I thought they were made in a factory. Like, I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? So when I first heard about the show, it was a while before I could watch it, and I kept on seeing the commercial, and I was thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, how are people actually doing this? And then finally I got to watch the show, and I started seeing how hard it was. And wanting to do it is one thing, but I've got psoriasis and, psoriatic arthritis. And when I played the drums for days afterward, my elbows and my knuckles would hurt. And I just thought, oh man, the pain that you guys have to go through to do this. But I still want to do it. In fact, I've even got, some things that I'm preparing to eventually, if I could ever, I don't know if this ever works, but yeah, you don't like using these things? Everybody I know who starts off forging gets a spike, and
railroad spikes are really not the best thing to start with. A lot of people love them because they look like knives, but they're actually harder to forge than real blade steel.
That's interesting. See, this is why I need to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, because there's so much to know. Yeah, I know he's right.
Wait, here he is. There. Here.
See, I can't even figure it out.
So,
Yeah, see, even he says he's
I'm
right
glad I'm
there.
not the only one.
So as I guess a beginner like Brian who wants to get into it,
I know
what would you
terminology,
suggest-
but I know nothing.
what would you suggest would be the thing to start with?
I would suggest a bar of what's called 1084 steel. It is a simple steel that has exactly the right amount of carbon for the amount of iron in it. So there's nothing left over on either side of the equation. It has the lowest forging temperature of the steel out there. The 1084 steel I use, I get from a guy in New Jersey. I don't know if you're allowed to mention suppliers on this thing, but
We're not
you
sponsored.
could edit.
So.
Yeah, we're not sponsored.
Okay. Yeah, they put black tape over all the logos of everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunate fire. I'm still finding black tape on logos and things.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So one of the memes that I put up on Facebook a couple of years ago was, black tape is for finalists.
That's awesome.
But so NewJerseySteelBaron.com. A guy named Aldo started it. He used to be a plumber who made knives for a hobby, and he had an opportunity to buy some really great steel at an auction. So he sold that, and when we went through all of it that he had, a whole lot of people were like, "Hey, Aldo, find somebody to make more of that stuff. That stuff is magic." And so he found a company that does little melts of the steel that are exactly to the specs that we want it to be. And at this point, he is the largest supplier of blade steel to the handmade knife industry. Great guy, still a little grumpy, but I've been buying steel from him literally since before he was officially in business, and he's always treated me right. And his 1084 steel is what I use for making my forged and fire-winning sword.
Nice.
And his 80 CRV2 steel is what I use for my knife or death sword.
So a lot of people don't know what all this means. Like you mentioned, It has the right amount of carbon. Now, Mark and I watched the show a little bit, so I can kind of understand. I've tried to research, and the higher the carbon content, the more you can sharpen it, but the more brittle it gets. Is that correct?
Yeah, sort of.
It's a completely different thing. I'm not asking you to teach us to be
a
metallurgist.
Okay. Yeah, I get going on metallurgy and I start data.
I know it's a passion for you, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I like that. I like hearing when somebody's passionate about something.
Yeah, one of my friends' wives says, "Hey, Paige, what kind of rust is it?"
Get right into it.
So basically, the thing that takes iron and makes it hardenable is carbon.
Okay.
And you don't have molecules in steel; it's a crystalline structure, and things get weird with the crystal arrangement. You got a regularly repeating lattice of iron atoms, and you got some carbon thrown in there. And the carbon is a little tiny thing that can duck in and out of where it needs to be, depending on how much energy there is. And when you heat it up, it actually moves to the outside of the lattice when it gets to a certain energy level. It's called austenitizing. And that's actually an endothermic transition. So you can actually, if you know what to look for, you can see a little bit of a shadow, and then it gets bright as the metal's heating. And then as it's coming down, you can see it gets dimmer, then there's just a little bit of a brightening as the carbon atom moves back to the center of this cubic structure. And So that right there is the critical point at which you get your transformation. If you bring it to just above that transformation and then quench it, the iron lattice goes and the carbon gets stuck kind of on the edge. That makes a whole lot of tension, but that makes it hard. Keeps the iron from sliding over one another. And at that point, you got what's called martensite. The martensite is the strong, hard structure, but it's also, in its untempered state, extremely brittle. So what you want to do is you want to take just a tiny bit of that strain energy out by heating it back up to, usually I like around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Let it sit for a couple hours. Just let that strain energy dissipate just a little bit. You get to keep most of your hardness, but you take a lot of the brittleness out. And so that's hardening followed by tempering.
Okay.
And 400 degrees, I mean, that sounds hot, but compared to an actual forge, it's like what, 1200 degrees or something?
Higher than that.
Higher
Actually,
than
yep. So I typically run my forge somewhere around 1900 degrees Fahrenheit. When I'm doing hardening, I'll set my electric kiln for between 1475 and 1525 Fahrenheit, depending on what steel I'm dealing with. Let everything come up to whatever that preset temperature was. Some of the more complex steels, I have to give it a little bit of time at that temperature to allow some of the alloying elements to come into solution. 1084, another reason why I recommend 1084 to beginners, although it actually makes really great blades. So I use it for a lot of things, including my Forge and Fire sword. You don't have to spend really any time at that austenizing temperature. Once you get there, it's pretty much good to go. You can quench it. You don't need fancy equipment to hold it at a temperature and then ramp it to another temperature and all that. You just bring it up to between 1475 and 1500 degrees, quench it in a fast oil, and then once it's come down to room temperature, wipe it off, throw it in an oven, temper it for 400 degrees for 3 hours, and you're good to rock and roll.
Awesome.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
So, Mark, when you get that forge in your backyard,
there's space. There's space. Where's the window? Where's the window? It's out there. I have an outbuilding that's not attached to the house that's far enough from the house and the neighbors that we could happily set something up back there and pound on metal all night and nobody's going to complain. However, I split wood for 2 hours yesterday and my arms are killing me. They're on fire.
I had torching a sword out for 50.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So a question about the sword. So I'm seeing the show notes here and I have to ask. So the note says starting over totally improvising a sword out of leftover scraps of steel with less than 2 days left on Forged in Fire. I got to know the story. So
okay. So when they send you home to your 45 hours in my season, they've shortened it up by 10 hours. So now it's 35 hours of home forge time.
Yeah, because 45 was just way too much.
Right. Yeah, people are pulling off Hail Marys like mine.
Wow.
But they send you, you have the option of using a piece of steel that's, pretty much equivalent to what Mr. Baker used to make the final weapon example. So, and this has come out as public knowledge from the judges, so I can actually talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because there'll probably be a lot of things that you can and can't talk about. So if there's something you can't talk about,
right?
You understand.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the stuff that people ask about, the judges have actually already answered on one or another of the numerous forums and fan groups. Mm-hmm. So, once something's public knowledge, there's really not a whole lot of secrecy left around it. But so anyway, they sent me home with a piece of 5160, which apparently is what Dave used to make the example sword out of. And I was working it by hand. I didn't have a power hammer or a press. And 5160 has chromium in it. It moves really slowly. And I was trying to get, 4.5 or so inches. I know you guys are in the metric system, but
we're good with inches.
Actually, we use both. We really use both. Yeah.
Yeah, see, doing the math of 25.4 millimeters to the inch in my head, 100 plus millimeters. Anyway, trying to get 4.5 inches wide out of this 2-inch bar, hammering it by hand. I was getting close. And I watched 1/4 of an inch of width just fall off as oxidation, because it had taken me so long to get there that I had literally oxidized a large portion of the width that I needed to hit parameters. And I got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm not sure I can make this work at this point. Do I continue to try to beat a dead horse, or do I panic and just try to hand something in? And I didn't have a big enough piece of steel to make a sword out of in the forge. Silly me, I left my remaining 1084 full-length bars, which was all I had, because I didn't have time to order anything between finding out I was actually going on and when they put me on an airplane. So I was woefully underprepared. Literally, I got back to the forge, and the welding forge that I used, the refractor was still wet because it was February and there's no heat in my shop. And I had literally poured it the day before I got on the plane. So I had to actually cure the refractory before I could use it during my home forge time. I also had to wire in an electronic temperature controller into
so you're still building the forge while you're
I'm still literally building equipment during my 45 hours of home time, because I had no time to repair, and I didn't expect to actually make it that far. I got home on a Friday and the camera crew started on Saturday.
Jeez. So that's how it goes. You're competing in the place, and then all of a sudden you go back home and boom, I always wondered about that. It's like, is there
kaboom.
Just bang, you're on. Okay.
Yeah, some people I've heard get lucky, and they actually have a week or so. Not me. During season 4, basically, they were stacked pretty tight. I was on the Magic season when they went from 10 scheduled episodes to 40.
Oh man.
Right after my episode aired, the network bought another 10 episodes, and then they bought another 10. And then they bought another 20, and then they bought another season.
Because the show's awesome.
Yeah. We were, I think we were between number 9 and number 11 on the non-scripted show ratings. Pretty much consistently for, I don't know if it was still there, but, season 3 through season 5 consistently ranked between number 9 and number 11 as far as non-scripted show ratings.
Well, that's because of situations like yours. I mean, you the drama. I mean, that was the Aquafina?
Yes.
So you built the first one, didn't quite work, and then you had to start again with 2 days left.
I took 5 pieces of 1084, and none of them was longer than about that. Forge welded them up into a really thick billet and then drew them out by hand. Because I didn't have a power hammer or a press.
Were the other contestants using presses and power hammers, or
Brock had
only one, and Brock
at the other at the finals, Brock had a slightly smaller version of Big Blue at the shop that he was using.
Okay. Do you have a power hammer now?
I just finally finished the press that I was originally going to build so that I could win Forge and Fire this summer.
Oh,
that was 4 years ago. That was.
I'm familiar with projects like that.
Yeah. I meant to ask you about Brock. He was an interesting character. Is that somebody that you've kept in touch with?
These
people? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk too often, but It's sort of like he's my brother from another mother at this point.
Got it.
When we do run into each other, like a Blade show or something like that, it's like we just left the bar yesterday.
I've seen it a lot on the show where, there's a lot of camaraderie, and I always wondered if that was genuine, because obviously sometimes there would be and sometimes there wouldn't be. There's always exceptions. But with your episode, I remember watching it thinking, I wonder if they still keep in touch, because Brock was definitely a creative. I mean, he wore leathers and he had his little, what was it, a flask or something that he had with him?
Oh, yeah, drinking horn. Yeah,
drinking horn.
Yeah, he wore chainmail. He wore the drinking horn. He's a Ren Fair blacksmith.
What does that
mean? He does
mean?
a couple different Ren Fairs.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Renaissance Fair.
Yeah. So, his normal work clothes are some sort of a Renaissance Fair costume, and he's got this huge personality. He's a great guy. After I won, we were wandering around Queens, killing time before because we weren't going to be getting on the airplane till the next day. So it's like, all right, we won. We got dumped back in Queens. Now what are we going to do? And it's Sunday afternoon. Everything's pretty much closed. We're wandering around and stop into a burger joint and. I left the table for a minute. Brock paid the bill, even though I just beaten him out of $10,000.
Oh my god! Wow. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have done that. Nice guy.
He's truly a gentleman, and I have absolutely nothing bad I could possibly say about him.
Good.
He made one strategic bad choice, going for what he perceived to be the more historically accurate construction, and putting the holes right in the middle of his blade, where the blade structure is mainly made out of wrought iron, whereas I was going for, all right, what is going to make this the strongest and still have the holes that I need to past the parameters.
Yes, because his bent, I believe.
His bent. His bent and then straightened.
Oh, okay.
Straightened back after the last test.
Right, yeah. It bent on the first test, on the bamboo test. And then on the kill test, it straightened.
Okay.
I just love that show. Aurora, you have never watched it, I could say.
I've never watched it. I'm actually really curious to see what the prize-winning sword was. Like, do you have a picture of it that you can pull up?
Do you still have it?
Actually, the studio has it.
Oh, the studio has it. Okay.
The studio keeps all the blades, don't they?
Yeah, well, they keep all the winning blades. The season 4, they started shipping back the runner-up blades to the finalist. So I actually finally at Blade Show, 2 years after our episode was done, finally got to get a good look at Brock's blade because he brought it to Blade Show.
Right on.
Okay.
Because literally when they're filming, you don't really get to. They hand you the blades for the standing in front of the judge, but other than that, they're across the room from you.
Well, they don't want a contestant getting all pissed off and going hatching at people. I didn't win.
I don't think it's even that. I don't think it's that really at all. Every once in a blue moon, you hear of a contestant, kind of having an attitude issue, shall we say? But that's extremely rare. The Forge and Fire community is overall such a friendly group. It's one of the things I constantly hear from the fans is that they love the show because of the camaraderie and the sportsmanship. It's very rare, extremely rare, that anybody visibly has an attitude issue, especially on camera.
Well, on camera, I've not seen anything. So, and I think I've watched almost all of them at this point. Big fan. Big fan. Definitely want to try it. And I won't be using these now, unfortunately.
There's other things you can use those for.
I'll put them back at the railroad.
Yeah, get somebody to show you how to weld and make a hat rack with them or something.
Okay, cool. I think we're about at the point of
swords.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
show us.
Hold on, show us something. Oh.
Ooh.
Ooh, cool.
What is that?
This is a mermaid cutlass. Bring a little bit of light over. So you can kind of see the seashell guards on this thing.
Yeah.
Trying to adjust the light. There we go. A little bit better light now.
Neat.
So when I found out I was going on Knife or Death.
Is that the knife you used?
No, it was. I actually made two.
Okay.
For Knife or Death, they gave me a weekend to make a sword from the time they told me I was going on the show. Before I had to have it at FedEx, and I didn't have the steel I wanted to use. It was still in shipment, and the oil I wanted to do the heat treat with was still in shipment. But they sent me a shipping label for that Monday.
Ugh.
So I made competition falchion version 1. Sent it off to them. And then the following weekend, when the steel I actually wanted to use for the sword and the heat treating oil came in on a Saturday, I was like, all right, I have my steel now. Can I make another sword? I heard nothing. Then I got a shipping label for that Monday.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So I had 14 hours to make that sword. And that was the right-handled sword I sent you guys a picture of that was the one that I used on Knife or Death. But so the blade that I made first and sent them never got used. So when I got it back, I decided I had to teach a casting class, how to do bronze casting for the Ashokan seminar, which is a smithing seminar done at the Ashokan Field Campus every year. Formerly of New Paltz, now it's actually owned by the Ashokan Foundation. They do amazing work there. They host the inner city kids for, wilderness nature retreats and teach them a whole bunch of things. But that's sort of a side thing. Just doing a plug for the Ashokan Center Foundation.
That's cool.
But we do, the New England Bladesmiths Guild does a seminar there every year. And I've had the honor of being allowed to teach there a couple times. And so I was teaching a casting class, and I figured, all right, well, I'm going to cast a hilt for this cutlass. And my stepdaughter was really into The Little Mermaid, so I cast a seashell guard on it and went with a mermaid theme, so it's the mermaid cutlass.
Nice.
Very cool.
Things like that are what make it mean more. I mean, obviously it's for your daughter and for something that's super important. So love that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of blade?
Sharp.
One that works, one that doesn't break.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm a fan of swept tilt rapiers. I got into fencing in the Society for Creative Anachronism, did that for years. Make swept tilt rapiers for that. I also love cutlasses because pirates and yar and all that.
So you like the big blades?
Yeah, well, actually, cutlasses aren't that big. I just did a boarding cutlass over the summer that the blade on it's 15 inches.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Well, I guess on a ship you wouldn't want anything too big.
Close quarters.
Yeah.
If you've ever been on a sailing ship, I got married on a sailing ship.
Okay.
The passageways below decks are pretty tiny. Yeah, you don't want to be trying to
ship right now. he's on a cruise as we speak.
I got married on the schooner Louis R. French, the oldest windjamming schooner in the main windjammer fleet.
Nice.
French is, I believe, at this point over 100 years old, and absolutely fantastic ship.
Yeah, Ryan is not on such a cool ship right now.
It is, but you know, it's a different kind of cool.
A different kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the old wooden ships, the everything below decks is small, and there isn't a whole lot of clearance if you wanted to be swinging a giant sword around. Right. So cutlasses were in the like 16 to 24 inch range typically.
Okay.
Because you try swinging something 30, 40 inches long below decks, and you're going to get hung up on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay, that makes sense.
And curved blades cut really well.
Yeah, they do. I like kukri. My father has one that I'm going to be getting from him one day. But I've
only made one kukri, and that was round one.
That's what I was wondering. So I was actually expecting you to say something like that because everybody seems to say the kukri when you ask them. But that's was that a pain in the butt or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went on having watched seasons 1 through 3, expecting that I was going to be making signature blade in my signature style.
Yeah.
And I had figured out what part of the car I was going to salvage the steel from. Everybody goes for leaf springs, but usually those have a lot of cracks in them, things like that. If you go for the sway bars, they're typically made out of the same metal, but don't take anywhere near as much stress as a leaf spring does. So they're much less likely to have fractures, and nobody's going for them. But then I get on, and I got Jason Knight, and I have to make Jason Knight's signature blade, which is the kukri. And I have to make it out of an 1.5 inch diameter piece of 01 tool steel. 1.5 inches. Or 1.5 inches, 2 inches. It felt like it was the size of a soup can. So I had to take this piece of metal that was massive around and very short and stretch it out into a blade.
A curved blade.
To me, Jason Knight's
out and then down for the kukri.
Right.
The big heavy front.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at the point where we are going to ask you the 3 questions because at the end of every episode we have 3 questions. But before we do that, I'm going to throw it to Aurora.
The airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow.
None of those.
African or European.
Do you guys have any questions for Paige before we get to our 3 questions?
Mark, do you have a question?
You know what? No, I think I'm good. I'm just really interested in your answer so far. So I'm looking forward to. I know the answer to one of the 3 questions because it's here in the notes, but the other 2, I don't even think you know the question. So
nope, not yet.
I'm curious because you said you not only forge weapons like knives and swords and stuff like that, you do jewelry as well.
I do.
Very neat. So how does that differ from the process of making like a knife or a neat sword? Oh wow,
very nice.
Because jewelry is so delicate, right? In a lot of cases.
In a lot of cases.
Wow.
Your camera adjusts well for that.
Yeah, right?
I can't do anything with my camera. And it's focusing right away.
I'm using a video camcorder with an adapter to go from HDMI to USB, and
I'm using a $3,000 camera here, man. This is like this should be working just right.
Now I gotta try it. I don't know. Yeah, I know it's still on me. Never mind. $69.99 on.
Didn't mean to take away from
I've got 3 webcams as backups. So for doing the jewelry, so. This is, hold up so the camera can see it. Light it so the camera can see it. So these little punches here actually become what strikes the metal in a lot of cases.
Wow. So it's much smaller.
Yeah. But they basically act the same way as the face of the hammer. So when I'm doing the work, and now is where I find that my props are astray. Okay, so this is a piece for a cornet that I'm doing that is based on the crown of Anne of Bavaria or Bohemia or something like that I photographed in the museum in Germany.
Cool.
So this started out as a piece of flat copper, and I put it in a bowl of pine pitch.
Oh.
Which I use a torch to melt so it gets a little bit soft,
Cool.
pliable, so it will support the work. I also use that torch for a lot of jewelry soldering, annealing, things like that. So I stick that in there, and if I was actually sticking it into work, I would submerge it so the whole thing is supported.
Wow.
Bowl's cold, so it takes a little while to actually get some heat going on it.
That is the coolest little torch.
To loosen it up. But
That is
I
so
heat up
neat.
this surface, and it not only holds, but it actually supports the work and allows some of the work to move and some of the work, the work that is not being directly pushed by the tool, to stay put. So now this is in there. Hold it so this can see it. Try to make it a little easier to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
There you go. Now you can see it. Use my lighting training. Duh. So then I take these little tools here, and this pitch bowl would be actually sitting in a support, and I would have my funny glasses on,
So you can see.
and
Yeah.
so I could
How
see,
small.
and basically use these tools with a small hammer called a chasing hammer to forge the metal the same as forging the hot steel, except that jewelry metals want to be worked cold. They don't want to be worked hot. But it's still forging. It's just a completely different scale.
Yeah.
That's
So
very
neat.
cool.
I do show and tell.
I
That's
like it.
awesome.
Love
I
it.
like,
used to
I
do-
like show and tell.
I used to do street performances. So yeah, as a musician, and I did street theater for 2 summers.
There you go.
Very
Nice.
cool.
All right. Well, that was beautiful. Thank you very much for showing us that. Aurora, anything else you'd like to ask?
No, that's awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that was cool.
All
I
right,
hope
so-
it wasn't too much of a lunatic ramble.
Nope.
No,
Perfect.
not at all.
No. All right. So now we have to ask you the questions. And the first question you know the answer to. The question that we like to ask all of our guests would be, would you like to issue a challenge, or what challenge would you like to issue to our viewers if they want to get into the same kind of career path as you, or just in general, a challenge that you think would be good for anybody to take on?
One of the it's a 2-part challenge. Hello, cat that just passed by.
There she goes. There's Dixie.
So I have 2 challenges actually, because I could never stay focused on one thing. So 2 challenges. 1, take something that was an important part of your past, piece of work you did. You may not be happy with it now. You may be, who knows? But go back and revisit it. Revisit what you did, but not doing it as you did it initially, but doing it as you would do it now. About every 10 or 15 years or so, I take another stab at this basic knife design. And, how would I approach a knife that, basically is a current how I work version of this knife that was the first knife I ever made. And it's an interesting way to kind of keep track of how far I've come creatively, technically, especially technically.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to some of the ideas and some of the design concepts that drove the original piece and how I would approach them today. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two, I tell my students that failure is one of the best teaching tools. Somebody asked ABS Mastersmith Kevin Cashin something about blades that has he ever made blades that didn't work, and he said something about he's got a whole field full of them. Doing something that doesn't work is actually of great value if you use that to assess what went wrong and fine-tune your process control so it doesn't go wrong again. So go to something that failed, revisit it with what you've learned since it failed, start over and carry it through to completion.
Love it.
Those are both great examples, and it can be applied to in many different creative facets, like photography, music, art making, paint, like whatever. I think it can be applied to so many different things. That's awesome.
I agree.
Yeah.
Actually, when I'm teaching photography, one of the things I do is a technique I call as if: aperture, shutter speed, ISO, focal length. It's a way of looking at an image, looking at how you created that image, and then kind of building up a muscle memory of how you did it and what worked and what didn't, comparing this one to that one. But reviewing the work you've done is really important. And yes, Dixie is now paying me a visit. There she is. And if I do this to her, if for longer than a couple seconds, she will probably bite me. So I will put her down.
So cute.
There she is. She's a good girl.
Yeah, so is the cat.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't been visited by Cersei. She must be camped out on my wife.
Because I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of like her what I call the condo, so she can sit up there and look out the window, and the rest of the world. I'm just like a midway point that she stops off at once in a while. So just let her do her.
Sounds about right for a cat.
Yeah, just let her do her.
Especially Tootsie.
Yeah, no kidding. Is yours crazy too?
Cersei, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a tuxedo kind of trait. Yeah, they definitely.
They're cats. They're all crazy.
She's got a bit of a psycho in her. But the tortoiseshell that we had, Angel, she was 22, 23 years old, whatever, and she was the sweetest little cat. Not a bitey bone in her body. And then this one, all bitey bones. Anyway, back to the questions. Next question we have for you.
It's question 3.
Something you're not familiar with. Excuse me. We ask all of our guests these 2 last questions without them knowing what they are. But if any of them watched our show, they would know the answer to this. And so far, nobody has. So
I don't know whether to be happy or sad about that.
Yeah, it's actually good because it gives us a surprise question to people.
Yeah, it's element of surprise.
Exactly.
So hopefully your audio doesn't cut out while you're asking.
Oh, right. Jeez. Okay, so I'll make it quick. And if I do cut out, then Aurora can ask the question. What the question is? What's your jam?
Trust me.
What's that song that gets you going every day? What's your jam? That tune that you can't skip forward past. It just makes you happy every time you hear it. You give a 5-star rating every opportunity you can. It just makes your life better.
Wow. That's a tough one.
Can't say Jethro Tull because that we've already talked about.
I'd pick it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was thinking more in the more along the lines of like Deep Purple.
Very good.
Something like Highway Star. Highway Star is a get up and go rocker.
Yeah, good tune.
For something really mellow, and serious and introspective, but one of my absolute favorite songs, I'd go with A Child in Time.
Who's that? Is that Deep Purple?
That's also Deep Purple.
Child in Time. I'm going to look it up.
Yep. And if you want something that's just absolute boogie blues, Lazy, off of the Made in Japan live album. I've worn out 7 copies on vinyl of that
album. Nice. How many needles? That's the real question. That's the expensive part. All right. So the last question of the night before we let you go will be a little different. Maybe, I don't know. I always start off the conversation like this. I say in the world of photography, everybody tends to do these what's in my bag videos. Like, this is the cool stuff I bring with me when I do a shoot. I don't really do what's in my bag kind of thing. I did one and I don't know why I did, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What we like to find out, though, is what is important to you in your day-to-day. What tool of the trade, let's say, will you find you use more than anything else? And it doesn't have to be a physical tool. It could be anything. What do you find is a perfect tool that helps you in your day-to-day?
Wow. Well, considering how many different things I do, between the jewelry and the bladesmithing, for the jewelry, obviously, now that I'm old, but this torch and my pitch ball, this pitch ball, I've been using the same ball with the same pitch in it. Add a little bit more every once in a while when it starts to, get a little bit low. Literally since 1987.
Wow.
So, I've got a lot of mileage out of that cast iron ball with a bunch of pine tar.
That would definitely be the tool of the trade for sure.
Yeah, probably to narrow it down to one thing that encompasses all of it, fire. Fire is a tool.
And fire wraps it all up.
And Mark, you froze. It wasn't me this time.
Yeah, he's really frozen, eh?
Yeah, he's frozen good.
Yeah. Wow. And that expression too.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, fire is a tool.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you're back. Okay. I heard you picking on me about the expression. Love it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, fire is a tool.
Brian, grab that as a screenshot and send it to me.
Yeah, I'll do that for you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sorry, what were you saying though, Mark?
Oh, I was saying fire wraps it all up. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Awesome.
So the whole thing. So that's perfect.
And that's pretty much it for us for tonight. Paige, thank you so much, man. It's been really great chatting with you and getting to know you, hearing how you work and hearing all the things that motivate you. I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear, especially people that want to get into forging or working with it.
And now you froze.
Oh, now Brian's frozen. He was just saying, are you still there, Brian?
I'm here.
You're here. Okay.
And now you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
And now you're back. Okay, perfect.
Some sort of weird thing going on.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
anyway.
We should probably just cut it and go.
Yeah.
Let me grab a.
Oh, he's got something to cut it with. Perfect.
There you go, slice. All right. Well, that's it for us, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Aurora, thanks for coming during your manager's meeting. Appreciate that. That's awesome. And Mark, as always, thank you, sir, for being here. Paige, one last time, thank you very much. I look over here because my screen's over here, but I'm really talking to you. Appreciate it for doing this.
Stay sharp.
Perfect.
Love it.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks, Paige.
Oh, here comes Dixie. There she is. And there she goes. All right. That was my cat. Right up to the condo.